Get a picture of this. Me right here.
Sure, honey.
Just get a picture. This little strip of material and strip it from right about there. So we're gonna strip it right over here. So it should look shiny like this. So one mistake I made with this was I was tightening these too soon. What you should do is remove this piece, tighten these bolts because this piece is flimsy. Tighten these bolts on both sides first, then you put this piece in, you tighten those down, and then you place the covers back on top, those pieces. So over here I'll show you how this thing works, and you can see how the batteries will be separated. When you touch this, you'll see it's 12.4 volts, and then when you touch this one, it's 11.9 volts. So this is my auxiliary battery, and this is my main car battery. And the reason why this one is staying charged because it's actually connected to the motor, and therefore they're separated. This one right here is actually grounded to the main battery, and this one is set up so that when the car turns on to a true ignition source, this thing fires up and bridges the connection between these two, so that when the engine's running, it'll charge both batteries. And if you go over here, I will show you how I did this. This is the 0 gauge wire that's going from the isolator to the battery, and this is the ground wire. And you can see I just connected it to the ground because this is connected to the car, which is grounded itself. And then this wire, which goes all the way up there under the hood and into the fuse box. And what I did over here is I attached, let me see if I can get this out, one of these things. And you can tell if it's a ground or if it's a true ignition source versus not a true ignition source by using a multimeter to check. If I can get this back in. So in order to find a true ignition source, you need to make sure that the black prong on your multimeter is connected to ground, which I have it right there set up. And the other red wire, which is the positive, all you have to do is touch it to one of these pieces. And if you see the multimeter go up, like it is here, that means that the piece is not a true ignition source. So you need to find one that doesn't go off, like this one right there. And then once you find one that doesn't go off when you touch it to the little metal piece on the fuse, you need to turn the car on and see if it goes off. So over here, I'll show you that these work well because all of these don't produce a voltage when you touch it. So now if you see when I turn the car on, let me turn the car on. Where are my keys? So if you check here, obviously we got to make sure it's still grounded. I kind of have it finagled in a certain way. But if we go back up, you can see that this is on. Let's see if And if you touch it to the next one, that is on. So since these were off when the car was off, you didn't get a voltage reading. That means that these are true ignition sources. So you test it when the car is off, and it should read nothing. And when you turn the car on, it should read 12 or whatever the voltage the battery is at on the car. And that means that is a true ignition source, and that's where you should connect this thing at. So when you're installing these things, before you connect anything, you want to remove the ground wire so then you don't shock yourself. And then once that's disconnected, you're gonna take your live wire or your positive and connect it to the positive of the battery, but make sure this thing is off. And then once that's done, you take the other ground wire and you attach it to ground. And then you take your multimeter, you go here, it should read 14.3 volts, and then you test it. This is the main car battery, and then you test it to the auxiliary battery, and it should read 14.3 volts, so they should be the same. And what that means is the energy that's being produced from the engine, this wire, is going through the isolator to this wire, which is connected to the battery. And it's not going off because obviously I have a weird thing. But they should equal the same voltage when you turn the car on. And that's the key. And that means this isolator is functioning properly. And you always want to have a fuse that is closest to the isolator and the main battery, which is all the way up here. And that's where my fuse is. Have a 100 amp fuse, and you could use 0 to 4 gauge wire if it's necessary. And obviously you want to make sure it's grounded. Ground, negative is the ground, and positive is where it comes, where the charging comes in. And I'll show you how I routed it. So over here, I kind of just slit a little piece over here so the flooring doesn't like popped up and it's not easy to close when we put the cap on this. But I chose the wiring to go underneath the seat all the way to my isolator, and from my isolator I kind of drilled a little hole in the wall to go around here, up there in the top, and it goes all the way back here to my, well, that's my solar charge controller. Back down through here. Under here where all my other wiring is. And I connect it to the battery in the back. Negative terminal, which is also the ground. I have the ground running right to here. Here you need to scrape off the paint and attach a bolt so it has a good connection to the ground. And this is my wire, my 0 gauge wire that runs from the front main battery to the isolator to the fuse. My fuse is right here. And it runs to the positive terminal on the battery. And make sure this is very important that it's 12 volt battery.